This is wild. I feel like I just hacked into the matrix because ChatGPT just confirmed that the USA functions 70 to 90% as a bureaucracy ruled by wealthy elites, which aligns with Elon Musk's recent statements in a recent interview. So look at this. I just asked, what is the percentage chance that Americans have been living in a bureaucracy ruled by wealthy bureaucrats versus a democracy? And here's what it says. Let me zoom in here, guys. This is so crazy. All right, so let's make this clear. So it says, it depends on how you define bureaucracy ruled by wealthy bureaucrats versus a democracy. The U.S. is officially a constitutional republic with democratic processes, but in practice, many argue that wealth and bureaucracy heavily influence governance. Several studies provide insights on this. A 2014 Princeton study by these people analyzed policy decisions and found that economic elites and organized interest groups have significantly more influence on government policy than your average citizens. This suggests an oligarchic tendency rather than a pure democracy. This is something I've been feeling intuitively for my most of my life. If you think about it, like when we have elections, you know, there's I think it's the illusion of this group of people that we're voting on, but then it always happens so quickly. The two main candidates are chosen, and it's like, who chooses these candidates? Obviously, they haven't been voted on necessarily, and obviously there's a push in the media to support certain of those figures, and usually it's one to two people that are pushed with advertising and media coverage, whereas the others are slowly forgotten or their character is attacked. So it says here, the revolving door between corporate lobbying and government positions further supports the idea that wealthy bureaucrats shape policy. I mean, if you think about it, you know, in order to get more media coverage, more support, you need more money. So the role of campaign finance, particularly post-Citizens United 2010, allows for virtually unlimited corporate and elite spending on elections, amplifying the power of the wealthy. So if they have unlimited spending, then of course the candidates chosen by the most wealthy corporate elites and powers are going to decide who is running. And it's going to be the people that enhance their own pockets, right? Because, well, people are greedy. People are typically ruled by that powerful emotion. And of course, these wealthy elites want to elect, politicians that support their pockets. All right, while democratic institutions still function, elections, rule of law, civil liberties, the argument that America operates under a plutocratic bureaucracy rather than a true democracy has strong evidence. I was actually surprised that a ChatGPT was actually saying this. That's why I feel like I've hacked into the matrix here. If one had to assign a probability based on these factors, it's reasonable to estimate that the U.S. functions 70 to 90% as a bureaucracy ruled by wealthy elites. Wow. It's not just like 40% or like 50% or 60%. It's ChatGPT says it's an estimate of 70 to 90%. This country is run by wealthy elites. And only 10 to 30% as true democracy, depending on how much weight you give to different influences. All right, so I went even further into this. Well, actually, let me skip that. I wanted to reframe my question on that one. Let me go to, what is the percentage chance Trump was chosen and funded by the bureaucracy ruled by elites? Now, this is where it gets interesting, because a lot of people accuse Trump of being like a wealthy elite, and of course he is. But let's see how much he was funded by other wealthy elites. Campaign financing. This is in 2016. Personal funding. He contributed approximately $66 million of his own money to his campaign, which was less than the $100 million he had pledged. Donor contributions. Initially, he relied heavily on small donors, not wealthy elites. It says small donors. Isn't that interesting, guys? However, by late June, 24% of his campaign contributions came from donors who gave $100,000 or more. Okay, that's fair. A significant increase from 1.7 reported in May. So that's only 24. That's a pretty small amount from large donors. And that's 100K. That's not like millions of dollars. So only 24% of his campaign contributions came from donors with 100 grand or more. Wow, interesting. Comparison with the opponent, Hillary Clinton at the time, campaign and its allies raised over 1.2 billion. Oh my gosh. That's a B, guys. 1.2 billion. That's insane. While Trump and his supporters raised about 600 million, that's half. Just half as much as her. And she still lost, indicating that she had more substantial backing from traditional political donors. Wow. So she raised more and still lost. That's hilarious. Initial resistance during the 2006 primaries, Trump faced considerable opposition from Republican elites and the party establishment. This is straight from ChatGPT saying that he did not get the support from those elites. Fascinating. Eventual endorsements as Trump's candidacy gained momentum. Several prominent Republican figures and major donors, such as casino billionaire, began to support his campaign. And, for instance, donated $25 million, becoming one of Trump's largest donors. Okay. So later on, he got more endorsements. Fascinating. Okay, that's really interesting. So far, it's saying that his donations were half as much as Hillary's. What is the percentage chance that she was chosen and funded by the bureaucracy ruled by elites? All right, so her campaign in 2016, total funds raised, her campaign and its supporting super PACs raised over $1.2 billion, nearly twice as much as Trump. Top donors were major Wall Street firms, Silicon Valley executives, and corporate PACs contributed heavily. So this narrative that it's just the Democrats and we live in a democracy and it's just the people that are voting. No, guys, we're talking about Wall Street, some of the most greedy people on the planet and top executives. Super PAC influence. The largest super PAC is the Priorities USA Action, raised over 1.192 million. Oh my gosh, with contributions from this guy and hedge fund managers. Look at this. Billionaires. With the name right there, GS. I don't even know if I'm allowed to say his name, honestly. That he's a dark person, I think. Okay, corporate and lobbyist support. Clinton, she received more of the campaign money from registered lobbyists than any other candidate in 2016. All right. You guys still think this is just a democratic process here? Okay, DNC favoritism. This DNC was accused of favoring her over Bernie Sanders. Well, sure seems like that. Endorsements from political elites. She had overwhelming support from high-profile leaders, former presidents, and establishment figures, including these people. Lovely people. Mainstream media outlets, media bias, many owned by large corporate interests. Look, it even says it right here. Mainstream media outlets, many owned by large corporate interests, overwhelmingly supported her and gave more negative coverage to her opponents. Look at this. This is crazy. Given her dominant financial backing, institutional support, and DNC favoritism, and now this is not just the narrative of like, oh, it's just the people that are voting for her. No, it doesn't even mention this at all. It just says she was chosen and funded by elite bureaucratic interests. There's a 90 to 99% chance. Oh my gosh. This is just ChatGPT saying this. I'm not even saying this. Her campaign was textbook example of establishment politics, with major corporate and political forces aligning to support the candidacy. Wow, this is so crazy. 90 to 99% chance it's done by the bureaucratic elites. Wow. That goes against the narrative that the Democrats are all for democracy and it's all just the power of the people, right? Okay, what is the percentage chance that Biden in 2020 was chosen and funded by the bureaucracy ruled by elites? All right, let's look at this one here. Total funds raised. His campaign and affiliated committees amassed substantial funds during the 2020 cycle. Top contributors. Major financial support came from individuals and entities associated with sectors like finance, probably Wall Street, law, and technology. Oh, so the same thing as we were just reading with the previous candidate. Nomination process. Despite a competitive primary with numerous candidates, he secured the Democratic nomination, indicating strong backing from party leadership and influential figures. Okay, considering this, we're getting less detailed information, but it still says here, considering the substantial financial contributions from elite sectors and decisive support from Democratic Party leadership, it is reasonable to estimate that there is a 90 to 95% chance. We're not just talking about like a 50% or 40%. This is insane. 90 to 95% chance. His 2020 candidacy was chosen and funded by elite bureaucratic interests. Oh my gosh. We hacked the matrix here, guys. We did it. Okay, what is the chance that the Democratic Party is swayed and funded by elite bureaucrats and not independently chosen by the Democratic citizen voters? This is interesting. So, Democratic Party's candidate selection and funding process are significantly influenced by elite donors and party officials, though reforms have been implemented to enhance grassroots participation. Okay, ChatGPT says financial contributions. A small fraction of Americans contribute large sums of political campaigns, with elite donors playing a substantial role in funding. Wealthy donors often have policy preferences that may not align with general electorate, potentially swaying party priorities. Historical context. Let's see. Reforms in 2018, the Democratic National Committee reduced superdelegates' power by preventing them from voting on the first ballot unless a candidate has clear majority, aiming to empower grassroots voters. But at the same time, isn't it the bureaucratic elites who even decide who's even being voted on in the first place? That's an argument. Donor influence. High-profile donors such as this guy, related to the other guy, GS, continue to hold considerable sway within the party as evidenced by their prominent presence in events like the Democratic National Convention. Is this guy even a U.S. citizen, or is his dad? I'm pretty sure his dad is not even a U.S. citizen, and he's one of the largest swayers in these, in who's elected and who wins. Internal tensions, and they still lost, by the way. The party faces challenges balancing donor interests with grassroots demand, so that's for sure. Okay, let's look here at the conclusion. It's reasonable to estimate, well, this is ChatGPT says, it's reasonable to estimate that the elite influence accounts for approximately 70 to 80% of the party's decision-making and funding dynamics, with grassroots input comprising the remaining 20 to 30%. Wow. So they still, ChatGPT admits here, 70 to 80% of the party's decision-making is done by bureaucratic elites, not necessarily a true grassroots democracy. All right, so we have work to do. The crazy thing is that despite all of that, despite the elites, the bureaucrats and elites supporting their candidates, Trump was still able to win the presidency, even in a potentially, well, I think a lot of people thought the system was broken, at least the past couple, or whatever, past how many people that ran for president. But the fact that Trump was able to, you know, he's wealthy enough to be able to fund his own presidency, that he potentially was not influenced by these establishment people who have been in power for potentially decades. All right. What do you guys think in the comments? This is wild. We hacked the matrix today. Really enjoyed this. What do you guys think in the comments? Do you think Trump's just an establishment leader who's, you know, was chosen by the Wall Street and the political elites who have been in power for decades? Or do you think he's more of an individual who's very successful, who's standing up for American values such as freedom of speech, the U.S. Constitution, Let me know in the comments below. Thanks everybody for tuning in, and I'll see you on the next video. Peace.